We will use the Farm Seafood Guide as an example, but all three guides are formatted in the same way and contain the same interactive features that we will highlight here. If you scroll past the cover page to page 2, you will come to a table of contents. Each section title listed here is clickable and will take you to that section. This is demonstrated in this video by clicking on the document navigation heading, which takes us to page 4 to learn more about navigating these interactive PDFs. On this page, there are additional details on how you can effectively navigate the regulatory guides. I will be reviewing much of the information in this section with you today, but you can always refer back to this at any time for a refresher. On page 5 of each guide, there is a regulatory flow chart. This chart outlines the general steps involved in taking product from sea, tank, or pond and ultimately to the intended market. For the aquaculture guide, this starts with the aquaculture operation and flows to landing or harvest of the farmed product or products. You can see that between the aquaculture operation and landing or harvest, there is a yellow box with the number 1 in it. If you click on that box, text will appear in the white space below it. This text outlines the regulatory framework or requirements in place to land or harvest farmed seafood in New York. From there, you can continue following the arrows in the flowchart based on how you hope to bring your products to market and which markets are of interest to you. Every time you come across a numbered box, you can click on it to see any additional requirements or guidance necessary to get there from the preceding step in the chart. If you would prefer to see all the steps necessary to get a product from the sea, tank, or pond to your final market of interest at once, you can also use this flowchart to navigate directly to the individual market guides. Each of the light blue boxes on the right and left of the flowcharts represents the individual market guides, and when clicked, you will be taken to that guide in the PDF. You'll notice that the markets listed on the left and right sides of the flowchart are nearly identical. Which one you choose will depend on whether you plan to sell your products as is, meaning whole unprocessed, which are linked on the left side of the flowchart, or if you plan to process them into other forms like fillets and steaks or value-added products such as chowders, stews, and dips. Guides for getting processed product to market are linked on the right side of the flowchart. The individual market guides are each listed in the table of contents and can also be accessed there. Simply click on the specific market you are interested in accessing, and you will jump to that section of the regulatory guide. While these are interactive guides meant to be easily viewed and accessed online, they are still PDFs and can be downloaded or printed. Downloaded versions viewed in Adobe Acrobat Reader will have the same interactive features and functionality as those viewed in your web browser. In printed versions, you will not be able to access the clickable features, including the content of the flowcharts. However, all the information contained in these flowcharts is included in the individual market guides, which can easily be printed and reviewed offline. But keep in mind, you can only access the additional resources linked throughout the guides when viewing them digitally and with an internet connection. To complement the regulatory guides and expand on some of the specific requirements outlined in them, a series of supplementary topical resources were developed to provide more detailed information on those topics. 9 topical resources were created, and each will be reviewed briefly now to highlight the type of information you can find in each and how it might be used to help you better access seafood markets. These guides will also be housed on the resource webpage at www.nyseagrant.org/seafood-guides and access the same way you access the regulatory guides. Seafood Guide number 1 covers the various food labeling requirements that must be met to bring your products to market. This includes the information that must be present on a product label and specific food safety and handling statements that might be necessary for certain products. The requirements that apply to you as a producer will vary depending on your specific situation. For example, requirements for retailers are different from wholesale operations. Throughout this guide and all the resources being presented, there are a series of links that will take you to agency and professional resource pages that will provide more information on the topics covered. Keep in mind that you will need to access these in digital or online formats with internet connection to actively engage and access those links. These additional resources will not be accessible in printed versions. Seafood Guide 2 covers ways one can enhance food safety and marketability of their products. This guide specifically addresses hazards that should be considered when you're not directly subject to the seafood HACCP regulation. This includes fishermen and farmers selling their products unprocessed and will help them to understand what buyers are looking for to ensure they can meet the sourcing requirements outlined in the Seafood HACCP regulation for wholesale buyers and food code or retail food service establishments. The hazards covered include histamine, pathogens, parasites, and aquaculture drugs, all of which rely on proper sourcing and temperature controls to minimize or prevent. Seafood Guide 3 covers the Seafood HACCP regulation and provides an overview of the HACCP process and steps necessary to create and implement a Seafood HACCP plan. HACCP plans are required for all wholesale seafood processors. It also contains information on Seafood HACCP Alliance's training program, which is offered through New York Sea Grant. Guide 4 reviews the good manufacturing practices, typically referred to as GMPs, that are applicable to all food processing operations. The Food and Drug Administration requires all food processing facilities to meet the requirements outlined in the GMP regulation, which covers sanitation and maintenance of food facilities to prevent, reduce, or eliminate the chances of food safety hazards during food processing operations. Guide number 5 provides additional details on sanitation practices and reviews the 8 key areas of sanitation, which include the safety of water used in a processing facility, the condition and cleanliness of surfaces within a facility, specifically those that are in direct contact with foods and are known as food contact surfaces, preventing cross-contamination of foods with potential food pathogens, the maintenance of hand washing, hand sanitizing, and toilet facilities, protecting foods from adulterants or contaminants not meant to be there, the proper labeling, storage, and use of toxic compounds such as cleansers or lubricants in a facility, the health of employees, and exclusion of pests such as insects and rodents that could contaminate food products. In addition to outlining these key areas of sanitation, the guide covers the recommended and required procedures for ensuring facilities are maintained in a clean and sanitary manner. Guide 6 covers allergens and cross-contact. Allergens are substances in foods that are recognized by the immune system and cause an allergic reaction when consumed by some. In the United States, there are 8 major food allergens identified, which account for about 90% of allergic reactions, and this includes fish and crustacean shellfish. It also covers how to properly control allergens, not only through proper labeling, but also prevention of cross-contact. Cross-contact occurs when one food allergen comes in contact with another. For instance, if you process fish and crab at the same time, the fish allergens transfer to the crab and vice versa. Since these are different allergens, someone who is not allergic to fish but is allergic to crab can experience an allergic reaction after consuming fish that has come in contact with crab. This guide will help you understand cross-contact and how it can be controlled and prevented. It also provides some information on other food intolerant substances that may be used in seafood products and must be controlled. Guide 7 provides information on seafood marketing. This includes an overview of the different markets that New York producers could access, ideas and resources for promoting and branding your seafood, and a variety of tools that can be helpful in marketing your products. While this guide provides a general overview, there are active links throughout that will take you to more detailed resources available to assist producers in marketing their catch or harvest. Guide number 8 highlights some best practices for delivery and mailing of seafood products. In addition to outlining best practices for handling, sanitation, and temperature controls, it also directs you to resources on eco-friendly packaging options, different regulations in place surrounding the transportation of foods, and the links to major shipping companies' resources on shipping perishable products like seafood. One last resource was created through the task force efforts with the help of a student worker, Omisha Menglani at Cornell University. This resource highlights the municipalities across Long Island that have local codes or ordinances in place specifically addressing the sale of seafood products, whether that be at farmers markets, farm stands, or even out of one's own home. Even though many municipalities don't specifically address the sale of seafood products in their local codes and ordinances, that does not mean it cannot be done. Links to Nassau and Suffolk County's lists of municipalities are provided in the document so producers can reach out directly to inquire about opportunities to sell their seafood products.